Well, good afternoon, everyone, and delighted to be on. I'm Supervisor George Hoehmann. We're also doing this on Facebook Live. I want to thank the West Nyack Library and the New City Library, all of our friends there. Rhonda, the director at West Nyack, has reached out and she's coordinating this book reading. And I'm really excited. I get into all the schools in the town of Clarkstown once a year, and I typically read to some of the classes in the elementary schools, primarily the middle schools. One of my favorite authors that I've read in the schools is Patricia Polacco. And this is her book. Patricia Polacco is a wonderful children's author. I had the opportunity to meet her a number of years ago at a bookstore down in northern New Jersey. Books and Greetings down in Northvale, New Jersey, at an author's event where she came in from out west and had discussed some of her books. Patricia Polacco herself had a learning disability as a young child, and she had several teachers that were extremely important in her life. And so she writes children's books that really have a message and a meaning. So this is Mr. Wayne's masterpiece, and I know how much the library folks, I know how much West Nyack and New City and all of our libraries miss the students and the children from coming in. Obviously, it's a tough time, so I'm happy to be able to take this time, a few minutes, and read one of my favorite books, Mr. Wayne's Masterpiece by Patricia Polacco, and I hope that everyone enjoys it. My worst nightmare had come true. After a few days of school, Mr. Tranchina asked me to read my essay out loud. I loved to write, but getting up and reading my essay in front of everybody, I just couldn't do it. No way. But when he called on me, I had to do it. I turned around, gripping the paper so tight that it fluttered like a bird in flight. My knees were knocking, and my mouth was so dry I couldn't move my lower jaw. I was sure the kids in the back could hear my heart beating. I looked up. Everybody was looking at me. Everybody. Take a deep breath, dear, Mr. T said softly from the front of the room. Remember, everyone here is your friend. We really want to hear your essay. But my voice wouldn't come out. Finally, Mr. T let me go back to my seat. It's all right, Patricia, he said. I just wanted to die. Later that day, Mr. T said he had someone he wanted me to meet. It turned out to be Mr. Wayne, the drama teacher. The drama teacher? Mr. T tells me that you're a crackerjack writer, Mr. Wayne said. He had the most wonderful smile. I like to write, I admitted. And he tells me that you have a problem getting up speaking in front of the class. I just looked down at the floor. Well, just maybe we can get you past that, he said, grinning and turning me toward a group of kids painting something on the floor. You see, our class is working on a winter play. My heart stopped in my chest. Drama class? Winter play? Me? Was he kidding? Did he really think I could ever get up on a stage in front of people? Maybe hundreds of people? After supper, Mom and I were sitting in our favorite chair together. She was a teacher now, but my uncle said when she was in college, she was the best actress ever. Everyone thought she would end up in Hollywood. When I told her that Mr. T had gotten me into the drama class, she was pleased. Oh, Tricia, you're going to love it. It will bring you out of your shyness. You'll be better than I ever was, she cooed. I didn't have the heart to tell her that I hated getting up in front of people and speaking. That when I did, I felt like I couldn't breathe. That I knew I'd fail. All I said was, I'll never be able to speak in front of people, Mom. Never. My mom thought for a time, then she kissed me. Please, Trish, it will bring a joy to your mother's life. You can't even imagine it. I knew for once my mother was absolutely wrong. At first, Mr. Wayne put me in charge of painting the scenery flats for the play. Someone had told him I loved art. Most everyone in the class was working in the play itself. It was called Musette in the Snow Garden, about a girl and her friends who disappear from this mysterious garden, something like a winter Peter Pan. Mr. Wayne had written it. He joked that it was his masterpiece. After a time, I became more and more fascinated listening to the cast rehearse for the play. I found myself mouthing the words as I painted and helped build the sets. Before long, I knew everyone's part, but no one knew. Mr. Wayne often invited me to join the rest of the class in exercises. He'd bark an emotion at us. He would immediately show that emotion: fear, anger, curiosity. He had us do word games too, and had our voices just make noise. Roar, harump. Sometimes he'd even tell us to lie on the floor and put heavy books on our stomachs and make us recite poems. If these books aren't moving, then you aren't using your diaphragms, he'd say. I was really beginning to love this class. One day, after I'd been in the class for a few weeks, Mr. Wayne announced who was taking each part in the play. Kathleen Burns would be Musette, the lead. I really liked Kathleen, and so did everyone else in the school, it seemed. She was a nice person, and what an actress. No wonder Mr. Wayne chose her. Finally, one day, as I was finishing up a scenery flap, Mr. Wayne gathered the cast on the stage. You all should have memorized your parts by now. Remember, on the night of the performance, there will be no one but each of you on this stage. You'll have to know your lines by heart. Yes, they all shouted, but they didn't. Bobby Eklund kept forgetting the last part of anything he had to say. Carol Costa spoke so low. Who knew if she even knew her part? I could see Mr. Wayne growing disappointed. Then Kathleen Burns, Musette, could hardly remember a single line. Come to the garden at the winter moon because this is when the magic chair will appear, I blurted out. What was I thinking? But Mr. Wayne didn't seem to mind, so every time someone forgot a word or a phrase, I shouted it out. Patricia, Mr. Wayne finally said, do you know the entire play? Do you know it by heart? I had to think for a moment. Well, I guess I do, I answered. Absolutely splendid, he said as he smiled. You must become our prompter. Yes, I nodded. I could do that. As long as I didn't have to go and get on the stage, I could prompt everybody's lines. Then, just a week before the play, catastrophe struck. Kathleen Burns' family suddenly moved away. They were just plain gone, without even telling the school. What are we going to do? Carol Costa howled at rehearsal. None of us knows her part well enough to step in for her. Donna Biscay said to Mr. Wayne, wait. Kathy Polos called out, Mr. Wayne, we have Musette. She's been here all along. She motioned towards me. Patricia knows every word of the play. Well, yes, I did, and my mother would be so proud. But when I looked out into the empty auditorium and tried to say a line, no words came out. Nothing came out. I felt like I had gulped handfuls of dust and sand. Finally, all I could manage to get out was a shaky, no, Mr. Wayne, not me. Everyone surrounded me. Patricia, you have to. You just have to, they said. Oh, please do it, please, Mike Conlon added. Mike Conlon had never spoken to me ever before. Well, Patricia, do you think you have it in you to do it, Mr. Wayne asked. I just started staring at the floor. She won't do it, Bobby Eklund finally scoffed. She's afraid. She can't even read her English papers out loud in front of our class. This time, Bobby Eklund was right. I was just afraid. After school that day, Mr. Wayne worked with me alone. Patricia, everyone in class is behind you. All of them will be as nervous as you are to stand up on that stage. Don't you know that? I want you to recite Musette's speech when she is in the garden at midnight. Then he pulled me out to the apron of the stage. I just started to say the lines. I really did not know them all by heart, but I looked out at the empty auditorium and my voice started shaking. Say each sentence slowly. Take a deep breath between each of them. I noticed you're locking your knees. Don't do that. Relax, move around the stage. You've heard my directions, so you know them by heart too. Mr. Wayne coaxed. Patricia, let the play take you. I forgot the audience that wasn't there. I did exactly as he instructed. I let the play take me. With each sentence, I seemed to gain strength. I didn't know I had. That's it, Patricia. You are my musette. The night of the play, Mom came backstage and helped all of us girls get into our costumes. I was excited but terrified. I couldn't even remember my opening lines. How many people will come to see the play? I asked her. Didn't somebody say it could be over 100 people, maybe 200? Doesn't matter, dear Trish. The moment you step on a stage, everything will come to you. 100 people, 200 people, my heart was pounding really, really hard and fast. I could hardly breathe. Carol came up behind me. You've been perfect in all the rehearsals. You're going to be great, she whispered. But I always rehearsed in front of an empty auditorium. I gulped. Mr. Wayne heard us. Remember, my musette, let the play take you. Then he brought me up to the stage, and we walked in the wings and waited until it was my entrance. I peeked around the curtain. I could see in the darkness the packed audience, mostly adults, but some children. My mouth was dry, and I couldn't feel my legs anymore. I couldn't do this. But then I heard my cue. You're on, Musette, Mr. Wayne whispered and gave me a little push. I took a deep breath. I unlocked my knees. I swayed a little. Musette, I said to myself, and again, Musette, and then I moved out onto the stage. Without thinking, my first line came out of my mouth, and then the second, and then the third. I moved around center stage to gather my handmaidens, my arms flowing as I called them. I was Musette, and the more I said, the easier that it got. The audience just seemed to disappear. I remembered every stage direction that Mr. Wayne had shown me. I gestured, I sang, I reacted to each of the others. I listened to what they were saying, and I responded. Everyone played their roles too. When Bobby Eklund flubbed a line to me, he looked lost, but it didn't throw me. I just fed him his next line under my breath. I was on fire. The rest of the play went without a hitch. Everyone did a great job. And what I loved most was that I felt like I belonged to something so much bigger than I was. All of us in the play were like a family. And the audience, it stood up and it gave us a standing ovation. I couldn't believe it. After the last curtain call, I found Mr. Wayne. You were right about everything, I gushed. Once I started, I forgot the audience. No butterflies, no stomachache, no shaky legs. I knew exactly what to say. Do you remember what I called my play? My masterpiece? I said that I did. Tonight, Patricia, I have another masterpiece. Where is it, Mr. Wayne? Maybe he'd written another play, I thought. It's you, Patricia. You showed courage and grace. You stood up to your fears. Tonight, you are my masterpiece. That magical night has lived in my memory all of these many, many years. Of course, Mr. Wayne had many, many masterpieces. Young people who were just like me, afraid of stepping on stage, and like me, afraid to speak in front of anybody. He molded them into miraculous creatures that, because of his workshops and good ideas and his belief in them, discovered the real power that they had. Thanks to him, I did lose my shyness, and I'm able to make speeches to crowds of many hundreds, sometimes even thousands. He taught me to speak from the heart and to believe in myself. But most of all, he taught me that all of us are masterpieces if given the chance and encouragement just to be one. The end. So I want to thank Rhonda Rossman and all the folks at the West Nyack Library for the opportunity, and all of our friends over at the New City Library as well. You know, the reason I love this book so much, and I love Patricia Polacco, is because she really writes with a purpose, and she has a message behind all of her books. And this book is really such a wonderful message that's offered, because this book really speaks about the power and the role, an important role that teachers can play. And I think that I really think that it's so super important for us to make sure that we recognize the role that our teachers play. It's a difficult time with so many people that are not in school, and that everything's being done remotely. It's not the same as being in front of the class, and it's not the same for the students sitting in the classroom with their students with their teachers, and it's not the same not being able to get into the library. But hopefully sessions like this are opportunities where we can really take the time to read and make sure that we're enjoying books that we can get online, like Patricia Polacco. And also it's really a time where we can enjoy, make sure that as parents, where we have this extra time at home, that we can really share time reading with our children. I miss those days. You know, my kids are older now. My youngest is actually a senior at Clarkstown South. Patricia Polacco is, some of these books are the ones that I've bought and used to read with my younger children, with my daughter in particular. So hopefully parents, you have the opportunity to be able to read and enjoy that time with each of your young people at home. And for the students, you know, again, time will pass and you'll be back in the classroom soon enough, and you'll be back in the library. And again, thank you to the West Nyack Library, our friends there, and the New City Library. And I hope everybody enjoyed this book. And if you have the opportunity, check out Patricia Polacco. She's got about a dozen or more children's books. Everyone has a message and a meaning behind it. And she's a wonderful author and one of my favorite children's authors. As I said, whenever I go into the schools and read, and I go into all 18 of the schools within the town of Clarkstown, I read in every one of them every year. And I always donate a book, and I've donated Patricia Polacco's books throughout the years to every one of the schools within our town. I hope that you enjoyed it, and hopefully you have an opportunity to follow her further and check her out. So thanks everybody for joining us, and have a wonderful day.